Hi, this is Wes, and I would like to welcome you to the Underground Geek Shack. Hey, do you want to know something? Even though you may be weak, you can still overcome your challenges and obstacles through hard work alone. Do with that information what you will. Today we're talking about World Trigger. So, with World Trigger, um, hmm, where do we begin? Well, let's see. The manga is still ongoing. Um, It is written by Daisuke Ashihara. I think that's how you say his name. And uh, I'm talking about the anime. So I've just recently started reading the manga. So I will not be diving as much into that as I would like to. But the anime has 3 seasons. So um, yeah. And each one gets better. With the animation quality kind of gets amped up little by little, so that's still good. But what you may be wondering is, what is World Trigger? So World Trigger is about humanity defending against alien invaders called neighbors, which are like these monsters that just show up out of a random portal, and they attack this city called Mikado City. And like, you have the defense force known as Border, and they sit here and try and protect the piece of their city by attacking the neighbors. And but the thing is that they think that the monsters that are coming through are the neighbors. Those are literally just puppets, but the neighbors actually are humans, and uh, they live in this other dimensional world called the neighborhood, which is basically like them calling Earthlings Earth. And it's just like, oh, okay, cool. So now we have to figure out how we can get our people, because apparently the neighbors come over and they take people from Earth and just take them back to the neighborhood. And so now you're trying to figure out, well, who did it? And is it just one person? But then you got to figure out that there's also, that's not just like a neighborhood, like, with houses. It's actually like full on worlds within this other dimension. So, yeah. But we meet this guy, we meet one of our protagonists. His name is Osamu Mikumo. And so with Osamu, he is a border agent, but he's a trainee. And so uh, one day, he's at school, they get a new transfer student, and um, they end up, him, the transfer student, Yumakuga, and Osamu, and a bunch of, I guess, bullies, uh, take them out to, like, the forbidden ruins of the city, and uh, beat the crap out of Osamu, and um, turns out that a neighbor shows up, and so now Osamu takes it upon himself to save the bully that's getting attacked. And even though he's weak, Osamu, that's what I'm talking about, not the bully. Even though Osamu's weak, he still tries his best to take out the neighbor, and Yuma ends up helping him take out the neighbor, because in this world they have this thing known as triggers. I mean, it's in the name, World Trigger, but they have this thing known as triggers, and um it's like this thing where, like, it's like a artificial body of yourself, so your actual body is stored somewhere else, like in a little pocket dimension. And the cool thing is that with that, like, it's not like um you're actually getting hurt. It's just your uh virtual body getting hurt, I guess. Because they have this thing, everyone has this power in World Trigger called Tryon, and everyone is born with a specific amount of Tryon. So whether that means you have like a little amount, or you have an above average amount, or you have like a massive amount, and that can kind of depict where you go. So like, you they have these special agents going from C rank all the way up to A rank, and like you have uh, people. So like with Osamu's school, it gets attacked by um, neighbors and everything. And well, actually, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I'm going to be jumping around a lot. So um, let me jump back to when Osamu saved the uh, bullies, and so they Osamu tries to help save the bullies, and he is just weak, and so he attacks the neighbor and the puppet at this point, and gets thrown into a wall, and Yuma has to end up stepping in to help him, and his guardian, it was named Replica, tells Yuma that like he can step in, but it's Yuma's decision. Yuma has to be the one to make the decision to step in and help, and Yuma has this thing. He also has a trigger, but his is known as a black trigger, and so he puts on his black trigger and then ends up stepping in, saving Osamu and everything. And he tells Osamu, he asks him if he's okay, but he calls him Four Eyes instead of Osamu, and makes Osamu have a flashback to when he, I guess, ran into another neighbor, and then uh, a guy saved him, and he was like, "Hey, Four Eyes, you doing okay?" And so he got a flashback to him, but then he told Yuma that his name isn't Four Eyes, that it's Osamu, and so their friendship started there, and got to a point where now, because Yuma tells Osamu, he is like, because Osamu doesn't know anything about Yuma, and he is like, "Yo, what are you? You used a trigger," and and Yuma's like, "Oh, well, I'm a neighbor. I came from the other side, so I'm what you would call a neighbor." And uh, throws Osamu for a loop, and so now he takes it upon himself to look after Yuma and help him and teach him about everything about Japan and the world and everything, and which is pretty cool because now it's like you're dealing with kind of like a political thing without even realizing it, because now it's like he's harboring a neighbor and he's trying to keep it from the higher ups within Border, and then when Border finds out, they're like, "Oh, well, he doesn't look that harmless, we can still use him." And so then they have Osamu go back to school and everything, and then the next day his school gets attacked by more neighbors, being the puppets, and then Osamu is able to save some of the students, and ends up almost getting taken out. So Yuma has to step in, and he uses Osamu's trigger, and which is like this like a shield mixed with a sword. Like he can switch between a sword and a shield, and he so Yuma takes that and ends up taking out the neighbor, and it's interesting because Yuma is very agile, and because he's known, I guess he's known war for a long time since he's been on the other side in the neighborhood, and so he does that, and then uh, we have the the Ashiyama unit uh, come in, and so they're like A ranks, and so they come in, and they're like, "Oh, who took this neighbor out?" And everyone is like, "Oh, it was Osamu. He saved all of us." And then they're like, "But you're a trainee. You can't be using your trigger outside of Border." And so that causes a whole fiasco in and of itself with Border, and even Yuma's like, "Oh yeah, Osamu did this, and Osamu did this, and he even took out one of the monsters with one single hit." And everyone's like, "Oh snap, that's super cool." And then we ended up getting more characters. Like we get introduced to Chika Amatori, and like with Chica's like this little girl, but like she's obviously on the same level as, like in the same grade as Osamu and Yuma, and it's interesting because with Chica, her friend, because apparently Chica can feel when neighbors show up, and nobody believed her, and so apparently Chica's friend, her only friend, believed her when she was back in grade school, and then uh, one day her best friend got taken by the neighbors, and um, then her older brother went on an away mission, I guess, and then got just sent to the neighborhood and just never returned. So now Chica is with Osamu, and they're trying to figure out how to get to find Chica's brother. And so we have Chica. And the thing is that with Yuma, with his guardian known as Replica can sit here and like show you how much Tryon you have, and so like he shows that like Osamu only has like a little amount of Tryon. That's why like um he can't really do a lot of a lot of agile movements and everything, and but then when it goes over to Chica, it shows that she has this massive amount of Tryon, and it's interesting because it's like when it shows it as a cube, and so it's like this massive cube that you know it's like that's a lot, and it's like okay, so she's basically gonna be like a tank, and it's interesting because like you have different squads. So like you have like because like there's these things known as the rank wars, but you got to be like a B rank in order to get into the B rank wars. You got to be a B rank, and then so they already promoted Osamu from being a C rank to a B rank based off of what happened at the school. So they were like, okay, we don't want any trouble. Just move him up a level. So he's now a B rank, and then they have Yuma go in and start as a C rank and then work his way up to B rank. So he's fighting all these people in like one-on-one rank battles, and to get like 1,000 points, and he gets all the points he needs super quickly, and then he gets ranked up to B rank, and then we get introduced to the Tamakoma branch because they're the ones that kind of like take in Osamu, Yuma, and Chika. And so the interesting thing is that like they start telling about the different weapons you have. So you have a sniper, a gunner, and an attacker. And so the interesting thing is that for Yuma is the attacker because he's very agile, quick on his feet, and so they make him the attacker. The interesting thing is that with Yuma, he uses a blade known as the Scorpion, which is interesting because, like, not only is it a blade that can be used offensively, but you can also use the blade, like I guess, very sneakily. Like, you can have it come out of your arm, and, like, in order to cut someone, or you can have it, like, come out of your leg, like out of your foot like a knife, and it's pretty cool. I feel like that's a pretty cool weapon to have. And then when it comes to like a gunner, like you can use different bullets. So like either you can actually use a physical gun to take someone out if you're just using Tryon bullets, and like or you can sit here and like you have these things known as like tracking bullets. So it's like Viper. So it's like you'll shoot something out and then you can direct where the bullets go, and like to attack your enemy. And then you can also have like a shield. In a way, it's kind of like a loadout set in a video game, if that makes sense. like you can pick and choose what you want, but you can only have like a set limit. So like you have in your trigger you have 8 slots, and so you can put whatever you want in your 8 slots. And like one is for your dominant hand, one's for your non-dominant hand, and if you put everything into your little loadout and make sure it works for you. And then like when it comes to Chica is more of a sniper, and so Chica has to be able to get to high places and everything, and then instantly move. And they have these things known as bagworms, which is literally just like a little cloak on them, but they can take you off of the radar of your operator. And it's cool because like each team, like you have different teams of 3. And so we're getting into the B rank wars here. And we have the different teams of 3. And so we have Tamakoma 2, which consists of um, Osamu, Yuma, and Chika. And then you have like a bunch of other teams that we get to go up against, like 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 the Suwa Squad, which basically just has a bunch of shooters. And you just basically have a bunch of gunners, because like you have Suwa Squad, and you have the main dude Suwa, who mainly deals with 2 shotguns. And so he has like 2 shotguns and a shield. And then I think it's like 2 shotguns and a shield. Then you have like people, one of his teammates is a sniper, and then another one is basically just another gunner. And but it's interesting because when it comes to the B rank wars, you get to see, because like everyone has to plan for the fight. And so, and with the B rank wars, it's not just like, oh, it's just one team of 3 versus one team of 3. It's one team of 3 versus another team versus another team. So you got 3 teams fighting each other like a battle royale. And so like the team with the lowest score, like who's just now entering, gets to pick the stage. So in a way, kind of like in Smash Bros, where you pick the stage first. You pick the stage first, and then you pick your characters. It'd be that kind of deal. And then like once everyone gets to the stage, and it's not like everyone spawned in at like one specific point. Think of it kind of like in a battle royale, kind of like either in Fortnite or in what was it? It was My Hero Ultra Rumble, where like everyone spawns in at random spots. And everyone spawns in at random spots, so they gotta sit here and figure out how to rendezvous with one another in order to make sure their plan is successful in taking out the other teams. And it's cool because you get to see each team try to figure out how to react and counter each other, and get one up on each other in order to get their points. Because it's not like, oh, I'm just gonna let you have this point. It's like, no, you kind of have to earn it in order to move up in the rank wars. And it's just cool because like just seeing all that go down. And then I didn't even talk about, I talked a little bit about the black triggers, but when it comes to the black trigger, like the thing that's, I mean, yes, it's a powerful weapon. So if you have a black trigger, you're instantly bumped up from an A rank, or from an A rank to an S rank. So like you're like the elite. And the interesting thing, the bad thing about a black trigger is that someone has to give up their life in order to create the black trigger, in order to protect someone. And so you have this one black trigger that Yuichi Jin has. Jin is the guy who saved Osamu the first time. And the thing is that he uses a black trigger, and with his black trigger, it's like Fushin, and like it has like 7 blades that stick out, but like it's like kind of like waves in the wind. So like you use like so like it, and it's funny because like with the way how Jin uses it, like he plans everything out ahead of time, but you don't know that until the fight actually takes place, and then you'll hear an opponent be like, "Did you plan this out ahead of time?" And he's like, "Maybe I did, maybe I didn't," and it's like that's cool. And then like when it comes to Yuma's Black Trigger, his dad ended up giving his life in order to save Yuma because Yuma was dying, and so Yuma's Black Trigger literally houses Yuma's original body, and it's just like Yuma's basically on a timer because his real body is in the trigger, and it's slowly dying. Whereas the one that we are introduced to is Yuma's Tryon body, so it's usually Tryon on top of Tryon. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So, yeah, and then we get into, like, later on down the line, so, like, after we get introduced to the whole rank wars and everything, and then we, and then Yuma also gets attacked during, before this time, before we even get Yuma inducted into being part of Border, uh, Yuma gets jumped by the Miwa squad, and so because they're like, yo, we don't like neighbors. All neighbors need to be eliminated and everything, and so Yuma literally is fighting like a 2v1, but it's not a 2v1, it's a 3v1 because they got snipers on the building, and it's just interesting to see how is Yuma going to be able to take on these three people, and even though he can't see the sniper, and like it's because like he fends him off pretty well, and like it's interesting to learn how like Yuma's able to adapt to how other people fight, and he's like, oh, okay, I could have sworn I dodged this attack from the spear dude, but I still got cut either way. And he's like, huh, that's interesting. And then he can also manipulate the same, like, he can analyze an attack and then reproduce that same attack, which is pretty cool. And then, like, so then we're gonna fast forward from that moment. So now Yuma's a part of Border, and um, we have Chica now inducted into Border too, and so like with Chica, since she's our sniper and she has a bunch of Tryon, right? And so with Chica, it gets to a point where like they were going into the training hall for the snipers, and they have her take a sniper called the Ibis, and they have her point the Ibis, and they're like, okay, just pull the trigger and just shoot at the dummy. And so she pulls the trigger and she just blasts a hole through the entire training facility. And so even the higher ups are like, yo, who did this? What's going on here? And they're like, oh, it was actually our teacher's fault. He's the one who authorized for us to do this. And but it's interesting because like we get to learn about the neighborhood and everything, and the fact that Yuma's dad had information about the neighborhood because they spent so long in the neighborhood walking around and going through these different worlds and the different nations, and Yuma's dad ended up passing away due to him giving his life to make Yuma's Black Trigger. But the thing he always told Yuma was, if something ever happens to me, go to Japan. And so that's exactly what Yuma did. And I just think that was interesting because that like now we actually have a place to start. And then we get into this. The thing is, right, is that I've never seen a war done this well before. I mean, yeah, okay, Naruto had the fourth grade Shinobi War. That was okay, but like with this one felt like it actually, like, you didn't know what was going on, right? Like when the war happened, this is the war with Afto Crater, and so we get it. There's like blaring alerts going off saying that, hey, it's a neighbor alert. A neighbor alert's going down. Everyone evacuate. And turns out that the neighbors who are actually human that are coming through the gate, like they show up, and then they see, because they can see all the level of Tryon from the different C rank agents, and they're like, oh snap, they have a C rank agent that has a bunch of Tryon, this being Chica, and it's like, oh, it's interesting because they call Chica their golden baby bird, and so they're like, oh well, we're just gonna take that one, and anyone else, capture them, and we're leaving. And so now it's a race to save all of the C rank agents and still defeat the Tryon soldiers that the neighbors brought, and trying to defeat the neighbors themselves. And it's like, yo, this is very methodical. Like, what the heck? And it's like we get to see a fight between Yuma and Xanark, or it's okay. So there's this old man who's a neighbor, and yeah, so we get to see him and Yuma duke it out, and their fight goes on for a long time. But it's a really good fight though. Yuma comes out victorious, and then there it gets to a point where Osamu's trying to get to he's trying to get Chica to the um, to border, because Jin says that his side effect. So people who have high amounts of Tryon in this world have this thing known as a side effect, which is like, hey, I can just, like, for Jin, he can see into the future, and he can see the different pathways of how things go. So like, if there's a neighbor attack, he can see, oh okay, this is gonna happen. I can see this might end up we might end up winning this war. We might end up losing a couple people, but we'll get them back. Or like, you have some people who can actually feel the emotions of other people, like prickling on their skin, and you're like, oh well, that's interesting. And so like with Jin, his goal was, a we need to get Osamu back to border. We need to get him and Chica back to border, because that's where they will be safest the most. And so Osamu's trying to run, but he's doing this thing where he is trying to fight the neighbors too, even though some of his bullets don't work, and like he's using this thing known as asteroid, and it breaks into little cubes and then just fires off at his opponent. And so he is firing off asteroids, and some of them that this other neighbor's using just turns everything that it hits into cubes of Tryon. And so he uses Chica, because he's like, oh, if the enemy is focused on somebody else, we can get a sneak attack in and, blindside him pretty much. And so he decides, hey, the enemy isn't focused on Chica right now. Let's sit here and blindside him with a large attack of asteroid. And so he shoots this huge amount of asteroid, because apparently Chica can like transfer her Tryon into someone else, and to use to help them out if they're ever in a tough situation. And so like he shoots off this huge amount of asteroids, and the enemy is like, oh, that's interesting. I'm just gonna negate all of your attacks, and then push past you, take Chica, and turn her into this cube of Tryon. And he turns her into a cube, and the last thing she says is, Osamu, run. But during this attack too is the reason why the neighbors are going after the C rank agents, is because they have these other they made like a modification to one of the older monsters of the puppets of the neighbors, and Kitora, who's from the Ashiyama squad, and her and Osamu went in and they were fighting the puppets of the neighbors, and turns out that Kitora got caught, and then um, she realized before she got turned into Tryon, she realized that, oh snap, they're after the C rank agents. We need to get them. They're after the trainees. We need to get them out of here. And so she's like, "Yo, Osamu, get everyone out. Get them back to border. Run. They're after the trainees." And so we Osamu's trying to get everyone evacuated, and like it was a mess because like everyone's scattered throughout. We don't really have that many agents and like to help out. And so like sometimes the trainees had to take on their own trigger in order to try and fight back. And like jeez, like it was a lot, man. Like but then we get to this point where Osamu's running. He's like holding Chica, as a Tryon cube. He's running, and Replica is helping out Osamu, and he's like, "Hey, we need to get to border." And Replica's like, "Yeah, I got you," and because Yuma tells Replica, he's like, "Hey, I need you to protect Osamu," and Replica's like, "All right, you finish off this fight. I'll go help. I'll go help out your boy." And so they go. They're running through buildings and everything, and they make it to. And the thing is that Osamu does something that you don't realize till the end of the arc, till the end of the war, and he is still running with this cube, right? And he gets hit because apparently there's a warp neighbor who can just appear and disappear and shoot out like rods of like darts, and so she shows up and she shoots at Osamu and so she pierces Osamu, and he does this thing because this is why he can't move. But mind you, he's still in his Tryon body, and so he tells the Tryon, well, he just tells Border, trigger off, and so now he's in his physical form, and so now he's running, trying to run to Border, and as fast as he can, and then a portal opens up in front of him, and he ends up getting taken out. But before he ends up, losing consciousness, Replica gets sliced in half, and so Replica tells Osamu, he's like, "Hey, I need you to throw me into that portal because I can send them back to wherever they came from, and this whole thing could be over." And Osamu doesn't want to do it, and so he throws Replica into the portal, and Replica hijacks the ship, and the last thing he tells Osamu is, "This is goodbye. Look after Yuma for me," and then Osamu blacks out, and then he ends up in a coma, and he's just in the hospital. And everyone that Osamu has met over the course of him being at Border comes by to see him. Even his trainers come by who work with him at Tamakoma Branch, come in and see him, and even they talk to his mom, and they're like, "Yo, we're sorry this happened," and everything. And like even Yuma is like, "It's fine, we're gonna get them back anyway." And then Chica is a little bit upset because she's like, it was her fault that he ended up in a coma, and Yuma's like, "Actually, it's not your fault. The thing that he did was he put you in a safer spot than where you were." And then we get a glimpse back to when he was running with the cube, because he told someone else, he told one of Chica's friends, and that, "Hey, there's a house with a blue roof and the cube is literally in the grass, and like so when you get to where Osamu is, and the other guy who turned Chica into a cube of Tryon, like he looks at the cube and he goes, "Oh snap! This is just a regular. This isn't even the golden baby bird. This is just a rock." And I'm like, "Oh, you've been carrying around a rock this entire time? Okay." And so he ends up saving Chica because of that smart split second decision that nobody knew about. And, you know, but it's interesting because with Osamu being in the coma, right? And he is replaying different events, and he's learning from what happened. And then when he wakes up and uh he is trying to recover, he talks to his mom, and his mom was like, if you ever need to talk, talk to me or get something off your chest, you can tell me, where I'm here for you. And then like even the higher ups at Border took Osamu from his bed, like from the hospital, and took him to a conference, to a press conference where Border is just getting grilled about, oh, y'all lost like 40 to 50 trainees. What about the friends and family of those people? Are you saying they don't matter? And then Border is just trying to come back with, hey, yo, no, we'll get them back. And then they're like, well, we heard that you had a trainee who used a trigger back then. How come they have? And so with other agents, they have this thing known as the bailout function, whereas if your Tryon body gets hit with like, let's say like your Tryon body limit gets exceeded, then you basically get teleported back to Border and you're basically safe. But the thing is that with the trainees, none of the trainees have the bailout function, so yeah, that's an issue. And so Osamu comes in and he tells all the reporters, he's like, "Hey, yo, we're gonna get back the friends and family we lost. We're gonna get back the 40 to 50 trainees that we lost. We're gonna bring them back, but it takes time. And we are gonna be the ones to go on this away mission, but we're gonna be the first ones." And so they're making it seem like, oh, these away missions are gonna be the first of their kind, and whereas Border is like, yeah, they kind of been already going on, but we just haven't told the public. And so, yeah. But it's interesting because, like, with Osamu, like, I'm mainly focusing on Osamu for this episode. If you guys want more, let me know in the comments. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Yeah. And if you want more World Trigger, just let me know and I'll come back with talking about Season 2 and Season 3. Or even if you want me to talk about the manga, then just let me know. But the interesting thing is that with Osamu, right, is that he is now learning. He's like, hey, I need to get better. He's like, I need to get stronger. Even though I have a limited amount of Tryon, I need to get stronger. And so he starts asking he starts asking A rank agents and other B rank agents, like, what he can do to help himself. So, like, he asks his trainers, and he's like, hey, yo, what can I do as a gunner, right? What can I do as a shooter? And they're like, well, you could do this. And then he's looking at other rank battles, and he's like, oh, wow, this other person is a shooter. Let me go and ask them. And it's like, it's interesting because he's learning different techniques to use, like these things known as composite bullets. Whereas, like, you take two, like I said, that's interesting because it's like you take two things. Like, I think it was you take, to make a composite bullet, you would take an asteroid plus a hound and mash those two together and then have it shoot straight out or diverge something and to make this whole other move. So it's like this plus this equals this new move. And it's interesting because now it's like, okay, how can I increase my output and, to increase, because he's like, I don't want it to rely so much on Yuma, because Yuma is the attacker, but the thing is that once Yuma gets taken out of the picture, then what? It's like, okay, yeah, we can rely on Yuma, but if Yuma gets taken out, then it's like, oh, well, that's it. I guess the game's over. GG's. We gotta bail out. And, you know, so it's like, it's cool because, like, with Osamu, he's learning different techniques. He's learning different tricks that suit him, that he has to find his own way. And it's cool because when it comes to the rank battles, the rank battles, um, like, everyone gets to see this one fight, and the like full commentary from a booth. And like, it's interesting because even after the rank battle ends, you get to hear what the commentators have to say about the rank battle. It's like, okay, well, what do you think this captain needs to do? What do you think this certain group needs to do? How do you think they can either, if they lost, how do you think they can improve? If they won, how do you think they can, do you think they can improve even more? And I like how each person gives them their take on, hey, you might want to, learn more techniques. You might want to find your own way when it comes to Osamu. It's like, you might want to find your own way of fighting. Stop relying on other people and try and find your own way of getting things done. And like with Chica, she can't shoot people, right? And so she is trying to work up the courage to, and yeah. But I think that's gonna be it for me for today. So I'm going to end it off here. Let me know what you thought about World Trigger, and if you have watched the anime, if you're, because apparently, from what I've heard, is that there's supposed to be a reboot coming out for World Trigger. Let me know if you're excited for the reboot of World Trigger, and let me know in the comment section down below if you've seen World Trigger. What did you think of it, season 1? And let me know if you want me to talk about season 2 and 3. It's getting close to Christmas, so Merry Christmas to you all, and thanks for visiting, and I hope you've enjoyed your visit to the Underground Geek Shack. See you guys.